My name is Lorna Stremcha. I'm from Havre, Montana, and I'm here to talk about Havre Public Schools and Montana's corruptions in the schools. My testimony is factual and can be supported by mountains of paperwork, including depositions, declarations of truth, notarized documents, and exhibits resulting from the arduous legal process. I was a 10-year teacher at Havre Public Schools with a successful work history of nearly 10 years. I was approached and harassed in my classroom by a mentally challenged visitor to the school. I feared I would be raped or worse. The administration's less than positive response to the situation eventually caused me to file a sexual harassment and hostile work environment complaint. After making the complaint and following the chain of command within the school system with no results, I filed a Montana Human Rights complaint and the Montana Human Rights Bureau. This was a dual filing with the EEOC. Upon returning to work the next year, I found hardcore pornography emails on my school computer, well over 150. I reported these emails to the authorities. Their response was that I was to keep quiet. I'd also like to note that I did talk to the Attorney General's office at this time, and he also pretty much told me to keep quiet. When asked to trace the pornography, the administration replied that it couldn't be done. As I pressed the issue, the administration embarked upon a series of closed meetings with students and parents in an attempt to discover anything and everything they could to use to build a case for my termination. Students reported that their meetings with the administration were secret. While I was never allowed to meet with the parents or the students to discuss what were obviously fabrications, the rumors were rampant. Administration leaks were prevalent, although I was constantly told to keep silent. I also received letters from administration threatening termination. These letters lacked a basis in fact and were simply threats. Such a campaign can take a toll. Admittedly, my teaching suffered. I was afraid to discipline my students in fear that such an action would result in more closed meetings and threats of termination. Grades were questioned. Parents called and met with members of the administration. These meetings were either scheduled for times during which they knew I could not attend or simply held without notification. I was left out. These are only the highlights of a year of harassment, intimidation, and bullying. Naturally, my health suffered. At one point, I weighed 90 pounds, and my physician prescribed medications for stress. In fact, he recommended that I take a leave of absence. When I returned home from the leave, my classroom was bare. My personal possessions were boxed. Students' work had been removed, was missing or destroyed. Grades had been awarded in my name that I had not authorized. In response to all of this and our forms of harassment, my union representatives simply said they can do what they want, their administration. Finally, I was terminated. While doing discovery, I learned that members of the Montana Human Rights Commission, members of the school district's law firm, and the Montana School Board Association and Montana Teachers Union all had political ties with the superintendent who terminated me. To make matters worse, he chaired the Board of Education and had a board member on his school board that chaired the Montana School Board Association. And he now is the executive director for the Montana School Board Administration. And my assistant superintendent is now second in command of Office of Public Instruction. Yes, all of these people met concerning my complaints against administration. These meetings were not published, and I was not in attendance. I'd also like to point out that I had 1,200 grades on my grade book, and over 1,200 grades were deleted from my grade book that should have gone out, that students earned. When asked in deposition, some teachers, do you think that this is a problem when an administrator comes in and deletes or changes grades? Their response in deposition, they didn't think it was a problem. They felt that administration should do anything and could do anything. If a school district is found guilty of sexual harassment, hostile work environment, they potentially could lose federal funding. No union representative or member wants to have that on their head. You know, who wants to be known as the union guy that caused the district to lose federal funding? So I guess, you know, I'm kind of a stickler for the rules, and I believe that everybody has a right to be protected. And so, in a way, I guess I'm a whistleblower on some of those things. I started reporting about school bullying and sexual harassment the year I started teaching, which was in 1993. When you know you're right, you fight. And I did nothing wrong, so I didn't hesitate to fight. No child deserves to be raped by a teacher. And no teacher deserves to be harassed, humiliated, and degraded by students, parents, or administrators. If any places in our nation I think that we should be safe and everyone should feel good is in public education in our churches, and we all know that that's not true right now. So what's happening in our universities, I say we are a Sandusky nation. And if people start taking a look at what's really happening in public education, they're going to find that out, and they don't want to. I think where we all went, honestly, where I think where a lot of us went wrong is we forget why we get into things to begin with. You know, absolute power corrupts. But where we went wrong is that really good people, you know, there are a lot of really good people that are very wealthy out there, and they're doing the right things. Where we went wrong, I think, is we have leaders in our schools that are violating laws and don't have morals and ethics, and we're allowing them to keep their jobs. The cover-up. The cover-up will get you every time. And so I think that, you know, you cheat once, you cheat again, you didn't get caught. Eventually you're going to get caught. But I think where we're going wrong is that these kids know. They know when an administrator or a coach is pulling a fast one over on them. They know. With this bullying and harassment, discrimination, it's all based on fear and intimidation, just like a rapist. And I can talk about rape because I was a rape victim. So I feel like I have the right to talk about that. And the correlations are very similar between domestic violence and workplace violence. And I think that a lot of the things that are going wrong, we have too many people that are getting away with breaking the law because they're too high up and they're protected. The most difficult part of the entire lawsuit was that I had to go relive all these things, and even in deposition had to go back to my childhood and relive, you know, rapes and assaults and abuse of what it's like to be in foster care. Those are things that when you're a foster kid and you're a kid that grew up like I did, because most people look at me and think, okay, she's married to a doctor, she does this. What they don't understand is that you have two choices. I left home when I was 16. I decided I wanted more. And I went and lived with the chief of police in Billings. I put myself through then I graduated from high school, put myself through college. I chose a different path. But you could either choose the drug path or you can choose the better path. I chose the better path. And I do attribute that. I do believe in God. I do believe in a higher spirit. And that's where my strength comes from.
Banned from teaching ever again anywhere in America for the rest of your life.
Well, I'm not banned. I do have my license. They can't get rid of that. I refuse. Actually, this is kind of funny because they tried to keep my license on hold. And I'm like, okay, because you have to go through all these FBI checks. And so our police department is not so good at the fingerprinting. And they kept messing my fingerprinting up. So I have friends with the Border Patrol. You know, come on, if you're a criminal, you don't have friends with FBI people and the Border Patrol. So the guy that used to run Border Patrol, I said, hey, can you fingerprint me? And he's like, well, we hate to do that, but yeah, come on up and we'll fingerprint you, because our police department wasn't getting it done right. So if you don't get a response, you know you're okay. And if you get a response back, that means you have to redo it. So I finally I knew that I was okay because, number one, I'm a CASA worker. So that's one thing that I've done since, is I'm an advocate for children. And I called the Office of Public Instruction and I asked them why I didn't have my license yet. And I left a message and the governor's attorney called me because I wanted to talk to the superintendent of public instruction. And, well, it ended up being the governor's attorney that called me. And I said, well, I just want to know why I don't have my license. Well, you know, everything's okay. Your character's okay, and you passed all you checked up positive for everything, you know, you're fine. I don't know what the holdup is. And I said, well, maybe we could talk about the holdup. So what I told her, she asked me, well, we just need more information. I said, well, what would you like to know? Would you like to know about the hardcore porn that was found on my computer? Would you like, and then she started naming the administrators involved. So I knew right away that she knew what this was about. And I said, well, how about this? We all sit down and we talk about this, because I've been waiting for this day for a very long time, and this was just last summer. So I've been waiting for this day for a very long time. So guess what? I'm going to call my attorneys. I'm going to call the Associated Press. I'm coming to Helena, and we're having a meeting at the Office of Public Instruction, and you can invite all your people, and I'll tell you what's wrong with Havre Public Schools and public education in Montana. So that's one thing I'm doing. So they were a little more afraid of me, and I got my license that day.
You had the meeting?
Didn't have the meeting. They didn't want to have the meeting, but by God, my license was up on the internet within hours after that. What I've done since, I've testified to get bills passed. I'm working with an international film producer on workplace bullying and harassment. I'm also working with Lawless in America. I just published my first book.
Can I get up and go out?
Which is kind of like a recovery book for people. And I am in the middle of just finishing up my second book, which is nonfiction, called Sins of Our Schools After the Bell Rings. And it's my story from my perspective of what happened to me. The reason I keep going is because, number one, I have a lot of former students that want to be teachers, and they're studying in education right now, and I refuse, absolutely within my power, I do not want them to have to teach in a school that is corrupt. I want teaching to be where I felt it should have been from my heart. And I keep going because this is happening all over the United States. There isn't a day that goes by that I'm not contacted by a teacher, a social worker, or a nurse that's going through this type of issue. And I'm not saying, whether I'm a Democrat or a Republican. I'm an independent, and I just want everybody to be able to work in a peaceful environment. We go to school. We have dreams. And those kids deserve to work in a peaceful, creative environment. So that's why I do what I do, to help other people.